go. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World Weekly Lecture. I'm Becky, and today I'm here with Gonçalo Hall from NomadX. We're going to talk about the remote work movement and the future of remote work. Welcome to Digital Nomad World, Gonçalo.
Hello. Thank you so much for the invitation. Super excited for our conversation.
You're welcome. I know we have this big topic to talk about. Remote work is booming these days, I feel. Would you agree?
Oh, yes. And there is no turning back. We see companies trying to fight against remote work, but now I think we reached to the point where remote work will just be the future. There is no fighting back. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's here to stay, for sure. And it's changing people's lives every day.
Yes, so many people just living in big cities and moving to smaller places. So many people having more time for their kids. So many people don't spending hours on their cars and public transportation because it's not where you work, it's how you work, right? So if you can set up your own system to work, if you can set up your own office, or if you can just go to a co-working space like I prefer to do, why going to the office at all? Like even the excuse that we need to be social with our teams nowadays doesn't make sense because our teams are not there. Hybrid companies are seeing that people want to go to the office to meet their teams. They go there and nobody is in the office. So hybrid is not working. Going back to the office is definitely not working. The future is flexible, work from anywhere. You decide where to work.
I love it. I always had that dream, and it was amazing when I achieved it as well. But I want to hear about your background first, Gonçalo. Can you tell us about yourself, and also how did you get into this idea of remote work?
That's the most difficult question always.
Let's start with it.
So let's start with the remote work part. I actually learned about remote work and digital nomadism like 12 years ago when I was working in Aveiro inside an office with 4 monitors in front of me. I started studying remote work because it was the tool to give me the freedom to work from anywhere. And yes, the dream was to work from Bali, like many digital nomads in the beginning. When I started, I was watching all these videos and learning everything about remote work. I ended up changing my job to go remote. I ended up learning so much about the whole systems from operations, following companies like GitLab, from like Doist, with Chase and Darren Murph, the heads of remote of both companies, teaching me so much. And I ended up working my first job as a salesperson for a remote work company, a startup, where I actually connected with so many HR managers that helped me then enter the remote workspace, first as consultant, as podcaster, and then I started working with the governments. I worked with the government of Madeira, with the government of Caoi Verde, and soon with the new countries to create these digital nomad hubs. So I'm in both spaces. I love, to be honest, both working with companies, helping them go remote, helping them with the knowledge, setting up communication, operations, etc. And on the other side, I'm working with countries to create digital nomad hubs, which is also super fun, and I never get bored.
I bet you don't. And I love that you're also at the governmental level on this, because when people first get into remote work, I think it is just about going to co-working spaces or having flexible days where they can go to the doctor during one part of their day and work. But as they get into it, I think they also realize that they need a community. They need to find that sense of community somehow. So we're going to get into that as well. But first of all, I'm curious, Gonçalo, how did your own life change when you became a remote worker?
Oh, I'm living my dream. It's incredible. So the first thing I did was, yes, I bought that ticket to Bali first, and I was exploring different communities. And the most important I noticed was that actually it was not going to Bali, which is interesting. It was the people I met in Bali. This was my first destination. And the people I met just helped me grow so much. I learned about everything, about productivity, about wellness, about global taxation. Just the daily conversations were so different from where I was. I'm from Lisbon. It was just so different, the kind of people who jump out of the office and decide to explore the world. So the biggest change was the personal growth, to be honest. Like with this freedom, the ability to decide where I work from, with whom I'm surrounded with, it helped me to meet the most interesting people I met since I started all this craziness. So for me, it's all about people. It was all about meeting the right people. It was all about having interesting conversations and all about personal growth. Because of them, I started as an employee. 9 months later, I was launching my business because everybody said, no, you cannot be an employee. You have to launch your business. You are entrepreneurial. And they convinced me just in 9 months to launch my business, risk everything, and start over again. So it's this kind of people that will push you to grow to your potential and not just lay back and chill and do whatever you want to do because it's safe. these guys will push you. These guys are like really trying to give their best. They are designing their lives. So for me, this was the biggest change and the biggest benefit of remote work. Surprisingly, it's not working from anywhere. It's working surrounded by the people I love the most and with whom I can grow.
Yeah, I have to say, one thing I noticed as I got into co-working spaces and was working remotely is that A, you're like working independently now, you have to make your own future. But B, yeah, the people around you at the office or your office that you choose, they're no longer in competition with you. They're not there to report back to managers about you. Oh, she came in at this time, or, oh,
Yeah.
she got that call that with the client I was trying to get. And so it becomes much more supportive, like you said.
And the collaborations, like I ended up collaborating with so many people. I just went to Bansko and it's like created 12 collaborations in 1 week in Bansko. And it happens the same over and over again. Like wherever you go, you just share what you do. And if there is a bridge to other people, now people building other communities, other startups coming to the space where now we have a name, we have the knowledge, we can help them, we will. And this is the difference. Like I don't care about competition at all. We have kind of competitors, but I couldn't care less, to be honest, because even the remote workspace, like just now hanging out with Darren, with Chase from Doist, with Darcy Balls, all those people, they are so incredible. We could be competing to see who is the best. It's the opposite. We're just cool people discussing the challenges, discussing the state of the world, and having very cool conversations I would never have with my peers back in Lisbon.
It's fantastic. So what made you decide to go that next step and start a community of remote workers and get into the governmental side, like you were mentioning? Because like I was saying, so many people could just be in the co-working spaces, just working, doing their day, and then going and living their best life on the beach or something.
Yeah, it was a mix. I think I created the project actually as a repopulation project. The idea was how can we repopulate the villages of Italy with remote work? So I wrote the whole project inspired in like NGOs doing this, like Grow Remote in Ireland, inspired by Bali community, by Chiang Mai community, but also inspired by Sende.co, a co-living space in the rural area of Spain, and even Bansko in Bulgaria. Like all these communities gave me a little bit with their knowledge, with what they built. And I decided I'm happier when I travel in between communities, not in between places. I was happier in Bali and in Chiang Mai than I was, for example, in Kuala Lumpur, because there was no community in Kuala Lumpur. And I started noticing that. And I think we were living lives in cities which are very disconnected from other people, not just because we are in cities, but because of our lifestyle. Like people went to the office, they work, they go back home, they are tired, they cook, they go to bed, and that was our normal life. I think we can design a better life. And I think the best life we can design is around community. It's around like-minded people. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you are actually happy. Somebody wrote in the book that happiness is community plus physical activity plus nature. And if this is true, then we need the community part, which I believe we lost by moving to big cities in the last 20 years. So this was the whole idea. It just ended up by accident that the Madeira government, I was just here in Madeira doing a conference, and by accident I mentioned the project because this place is crazy beautiful, and I said this was a big opportunity for Madeira. And the weirdest thing is they actually believed me. Not just they believed me, but the next day I was meeting the president of Madeira, discussing what I could do with Madeira for digital nomads, and they also believed me. And we could do the same like other countries did. We could create a website, do a nice video, do some events, but that's boring and that leads to nowhere. We see the results of other countries just creating videos. So the whole project was, how can we create a community in a village? That's it. How can we use a natural space that's a village that was built around community to build an incredible digital nomad community, fully integrated with the locals, fully integrated with the space? We don't want to be invaders. We want to be integrated with the local community. So I think that was very important. And building the free co-working space and building the whole daily events. Now we have 70 events per week around that in Madeira. So building all that is a lot of work, but the results were also much better than the other projects and much faster. So the inspiration was repopulation, and now it still is. Meaning digital nomads are just the top of the funnel for repopulation. With the project in 1.5 years, around 100 nomads already moved here. So now they live in Madeira, they have a base in Madeira, they open their companies here. So it's happening. I just think I was thinking about remote workers in the beginning, and I think digital nomads are still above on this funnel. So I think we have digital nomads on top of the funnel. Let's say 1,000 nomads visit. 10 of these 1,000 will actually fall in love and stay here because well, the island is beautiful. So I think it's pretty much the same project. We just started a little bit early with our digital nomad community, and we try to integrate it with the local community and with the expat community to have this very vibrant ecosystem I love in Madeira.
That's amazing. I know that we met last February 2021, and the co-working space had just opened, I would say a few weeks before. And so it's amazing. Like, can you give me an update? What happened after that? What is happening there now? You mentioned how many events are going on, so I'm guessing
Yeah.
it's still going.
So we have the numbers for the first year, and now we are 1 year and a half into it. Well, first year we had around 6,000 people, the ones we registered here. The numbers should be off around 40% because lots of nomads come and they don't know about the project or they don't register. But we had around 6,000 people registered that came on 12 to 13,000 people that registered in the whole project. So that's how it went in the first year. It went crazy. Lots of events, had ups and downs. Usually the summer was a low season, even though this year there's a lot of nomads in the island during the summer, which is surprising. Our last community manager had 30 people, which is unheard of during the summer. And well, we have more than 100 companies registered. We have like 150 plus publications that wrote about us. Very cool articles. Like JQ wrote such a cool article about the whole project, like life in the Zoom Islands. And it's just fun to be recognized. But the most important thing is that we have nomads that came back for the third time in just 1 year and a half of the project. We have nomads that pledge that they will come back every year on the same season, so they can meet with the same people because they met their best friends here, they met their family here. So both numbers, but most important, the feedback of the people are absolutely incredible. And it's a lot of fun, and it puts a lot of pressure for the future communities as well. But it's really, really good what's happening here. It's really good what's happening in Porto do Sol, but now also spreading out to the rest of the island. And it's very nice, the experience. Now people call me midsummer, where should I go? Like, I have this community, where can I find communities like Madeira? There aren't many yet. Yes, there is Bali. Yes, Chiang Mai is reborning, but there aren't many communities as vibrant and as tight as here in Porto Sol. Like Lisbon has this massive community. I know you love Lisbon, but still it's a big city. So you can see the same people from time to time, but you don't bump on the street on them every single day like you do here. So it's kind of, I really believe that you build different types of relationships in villages. So the project is going really well. We are growing. We open in Africa and we are growing to South America as well. And by coincidence, I swear, it's all Portuguese language countries, which is quite fun.
That was my next question, was about the African community that you went to next in Cape Verde. Can you talk about that and how it's different from Madeira, and then how it's what it was like? Because I didn't get a chance to visit that one on site.
Yet.
Yet,
No, so yeah, it's
course,
very
yet.
different actually. And we built it the same. So we have our project is structure. We can work with any destination in the world, and our project, the structure is the same. We have to learn about the place. We have to learn what makes it special. And then we started building the ecosystem. We start by the structure, accommodation, co-working, etc. So the structure is there. What was different is Cape Verde is actually in Africa. It's an African island 1 hour south of the Canary Islands. And it's more underdeveloped than Madeira. Madeira is European. Lots of money from the European Union came to build this place, lots of tunnels. And Africa and Cape Verde, they don't have access to that. So they are in the later stage of development, which is actually quite interesting as well. So we chose the capital of culture to start. So we could choose the capital of tourism, Sal, which is more like an island full of tourists and full of resorts. Not my vibe. We could start with Praia, a little bit dangerous, even though it's a nice city. It's the capital of Cape Verde. But we decided to start by the capital of the culture, called Mindelo in São Vicente Island. And we started the community there. We have lots of accommodation, which is cool. We partner with everybody. We have a co-working space. 2 more are opening this year, all private working spaces. And it went really well. The issue was, and there was always a challenge that we didn't thought about it. And there it was the connections, the flight connections, because the Cape Verde Airlines went bankrupt back then. We didn't have all the flight connections. And now we have flight connections directly there for 200 euros, which is quite okay from Lisbon and now from other parts of Europe. But the community, we tested with around 50, 60 people last year. And everybody loved it. Like, we were swimming with the turtles on the weekends, literally on the ocean, not even in aquariums. No, we're swimming in nature with the turtles led by the locals. We were we were just listening to live music every single night and absorbing the African culture, and all that just 4 hours from Lisbon, outside Schengen zone. So, for example, if you're American, if you are from anywhere outside Schengen zone, it's quite cool. So you can reset your visa in the very warm destination. They have 22, 23 degrees during the winter. The peak of the winter is around 23 degrees, so it's quite cool. And yeah, I just fell in love with it. Honestly, I miss Cape Verde so much. I miss the people. People just approached us on the bar, like they saw us in the bar 2 weeks in a row. I was like, what are you doing here? Who are you? What are you doing? And they told artists, oh, what is that? They were so curious. They wanted to learn so much about us that it was, honestly, it was the most welcoming location I ever visited and heard of. Just the integration that we as nomads can have there compared with Bali, Thailand, Madeira, and everywhere else, even Lisbon, it's just so different. The locals are so curious. They are thirsty for knowledge. They are thirsty for knowing more about us. And that was very interesting. So overall, the project is built. We are now expanding to other islands as well, but now we have the connections. That was the missing part. And I know Cape Verde is working actively to bring more low costs so we can reduce even more the flight price. And also we have a remote work visa program that allows you to stay there for 6 months straight away without many hassle. I think the minimum salary you need to have is 900 euros or something like that. And you can do everything online. You arrive, you have 6 months, you can stay there, which is great. Or you can go with a tourist visa, stay 1 month, and then you can renew for 3 more months. So that's also quite cool. But then you have to go to the police twice. It's a little bit more hassle. If you just do the remote work visa, you are free for 6 months, and you can go out and come back one time, which is quite cool as well. So that's Cape Verde. It's incredible. It's beautiful. The people are way too kind and still growing, still growing. I think it will be top 20 in 3 years. That's my bet.
Wow, I can't wait to go. I've never been. You've just sold me on it, so that's going up to the top of my list. When are you going back there next?
I don't know. I'm opening a new community in South America, so I think I'm going only next year. I'm actually traveling to this country in South America in 1 month. So I'm starting to build there everything to open in the 1st of November. So this year we'll go to South America and actually build a bridge between Portugal, Cape Verde, which is in the middle, and South America. So the idea is to have the 3 communities, grow the 3 countries, and grow deeper. It's not like we don't want to open 20 communities. We want to like have very strong communities in 3 countries, and we are for now happy with that. So this year I'm not going to Cape Verde, but next year I'll be there again visiting my friends.
Okay, I'll keep tabs on that. But can you tell us, can you give away or give us a preview of which country you're going to for this 3rd country?
Yes, because it's a very big country, I can tell you the country.
Okay.
So Cape Verde is halfway through. If you see on the map, we have Portugal, Madeira, of course. Then we have Cape Verde, which is just 4 hours from Portugal. And then if you fly 4 more hours, you land in this beautiful country full of white sand beaches, full of music, full of culture, full of samba. So we are going to Brazil. And the place will be announced by the end of August, but we are going to Brazil. It's not Florianopolis. It's not a city. It's more like a village style, more like we love to do here in Madeira. So it will have like high impact. We are working with the Minister of Tourism of Brazil right now, and also trying to check with all the local authorities if we have everything we need. Again, we built all the structure for nomads, co-working spaces, etc. So we need to be sure we have all the structure. So by the end of August, I hope we will be announcing, and it will be somewhere under digitalnomadsbrazil.com by then.
Oh, I'm so excited. I know so many people love Brazil, but I love how you're expanding these smaller communities, but also allowing people to connect on a deeper level by going to these smaller places.
Yeah, and we also have to take into account why Brazil didn't explode yet, right? Why is Brazil still outside the main hubs for digital nomads, even though some people go there? And the main reason that people point me out is security. So this is a big team, but Brazil is massive. It's 300 million people country. So it's way too big. And of course, there is security concerns in Rio, São Paulo, and other cities. But if you are smart and you know how to move around or you know where to go, we're actually building a super safe location. So it takes more time to research about these locations. It takes more time because I have to visit them and feel safe. But now we can say we'll build in a super safe location with very low crime, where you can still have your phone and talk on your phone in the street without being robbed. And security is a big concern. So we want to open more communities in Brazil, but always with security on top of the mind, because we nomads, we travel with a lot of stuff. We travel with our computers, with our cell phones, we create content. So we need to feel safe wherever we are. And that's a big concern for us. So we are building it on purpose, on a place where people can feel safe and feel kind of integrated in the local community. And we are also working with the local authorities to make sure that that happens. And that's really the case, not just propaganda from the local government. Everywhere is safe, right? So we have to make sure it's safe for European standards. And that's what we are working on finding the right location and on building it. 1st of November, Nomads will land somewhere in Brazil.
Oh, I'm so glad that Brazil's going to get the credit it deserves, because it's such a huge country, right? There's so many places people have not heard of, and you can't put them all in one box and just say not safe, not going.
No. In Brazil, I think we'll build 10 communities in 3 to 4 years. I see Brazil very diverse. We have contacts from locations in the Amazon forest, for example, which is incredible. We have contacts in Foz do Iguaçu. We have contacts on incredible beach places in small cities. So there is a lot to explore, and there is a lot to create a whole network of locations in Brazil that follow our rules, that are safe, that have a strong community, that have co-working spaces, that have accommodation. So I believe that we'll have 5 to 10 communities within the next couple of years.
Wow, I can't wait. So exciting. So I'm wondering, to go back to this idea of remote work and how it's changing a bit, have you noticed over the time since you started in Madeira and then Cape Verde? Of course, these are two very different places, but I feel like with the pandemic, you had more people that were working for companies that just went remote. And I feel like before that, like you mentioned Bali a few times, there was this different type of nomad that was out there working. I want to say generally they were a bit more hippie, they were a bit more rebellious, and they had just gone out on their own to these places. Have you noticed that a change in the type of, let's say, nomad or remote worker that's been coming to your spaces and your communities in the last couple of
100%.
years?
I think we have around 60 to 70% remote workers, people with full-time jobs for all kinds of companies. And to be honest, I think that's great. Yes, we were the early adopters. Yes, we had to fight a lot to be digital nomads. And remote workers now, they have to fight much less because they have their job, they have security. I remember I started without much security, even with a job. Like there was no security that I will have the job. It was a startup job. I fighted a lot to have the freedom to work from wherever I wanted. And it was a fight. It took me several years to have this ability to work remotely. And now after COVID, most of people working on their computer, they can work remotely. And if they can't, they can just move to another company and have that. So yes, the community changed a lot and we grew. We are now more normalized around the world. Remember, like when we started, I remember Thai government in Chiang Mai arresting people in co-working spaces. A couple of my friends were arrested in co-working spaces in Thailand because they were working illegally in the country. And this was in a time where governments didn't care about digital nomads. And now we have like 50 digital nomad visas created and everybody trying to allure digital nomads to their locations. So I think the community changed a lot and we feel it. And I think it's good, to be honest. I think it's the normalization of the community. We had the early adopters, the crazy ones. I'm so happy to be one of them. But at the same time, I think we needed to grow as a community. We needed to go a little bit more mainstream. And I think all these new remote workers bring a little bit of that, bring the normalization, bring the availability even of the countries, because countries need to know that we have the money to stay there. And remote workers, it's just easier to show that we receive money because we work for this company. So overall, I think it's good. I think it's of course big changes. And I think we as older digital nomads have the responsibility to help educate the new nomads. We took this very serious here in Madeira. And by educating them, I mean, how can we have a positive impact as nomads in all our destinations? So it's not just about going to one place and take things from there, take experiences, take memories. How can we give back? How can we give back with our money? Where we spend our money? Should we spend our money in Starbucks or in the local cafeteria? Of course, in the local cafe every single time. There is no questions. So it's also our responsibility as older nomads, and of course, Nomads Giving Back with Tarek's doing an incredible job on this, to also teach a little bit of what it's really to be a nomad, how to actually give back, how to be grateful for everything we have and for this freedom, but also how to help the locals on having this freedom as well. We did this in Cape Verde. We did a lot of workshops for the locals to make sure they know about remote work, and universities. We do the same here in Madeira. So this is very important. If you just give your time 2 hours a week to give back in some way, or just think where to spend your money, this is massive. So yes, the community changed a lot. It's our responsibility as older people in the movement to actually help the new nomads to move around, to understand how the movement works, to understand the power of community, to understand how to give back, and to understand actually how can we live a great life and empower others to live as well a life like this. So lots to do for sure, but I think these new nomads and just this trend of remote work will be incredible and will help us have a very strong impact in the nomad locations like we're having here in Madeira and in the future in Cape Verde and Brazil.
That's great. Where do you feel at this point, with so much that's changed in the last 2 years with this pandemic, where do you feel that remote work is going to go in the future?
I think it's just normalized. I think there is just, of course, always a pushback in the trends, right? Everybody was working remotely because of COVID, and companies tried to push people back to the office. Most people said no. We started a great resignation a little bit pushed by that, and now it's kind of first question everybody asks. And companies who are trying to push people back to the office are just failing and seeing their best employees leave, including Apple. If Apple cannot keep their people when they decide to go remote, who can? Nobody. So this is the biggest trend ever. We see the normalization of remote work is happening. Still a lot to do on the education side. We completely changed the way we work without being educated on how to work remotely. So I think even though this is very good in general, I think there is a lot of work to do inside the companies in terms of communication, in terms of documentation, in terms of processes, in terms of managing productivity. So I think the trend is there. I think now it's time to start building from inside the companies what is truly remote work. It's not having 5-6 hours of calls every day. It's having time for deep work. It's not trying and asking questions on your Slack every time you have a doubt. It's having documentation, and you having access to documentation so you can see your question answered. So there is a lot of work to do inside the companies that are going remote, which is the next challenge, to help companies understand that even though they are working remotely, most of them are not doing it properly. And we remote work ambassadors, we remote work consultants have to help them to move to the right side of remote work, which is definitely more synchronous with more documentation and very, very human-centric, which is ironic. People think that because we are not working together, we cannot be human-centric. It's the opposite. I think we will care more about who works for us exactly because we are working remotely. So major trends happening in the working scene. And I think we'll have a very fun next 3 years working with companies and helping companies to understand remote work. And now companies are finally thinking long-term for the first time. So now it will be fun 3 years to build these very strong and very human-focused companies.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to be more normalized. I remember, I'm sure you do, having to defend what you were doing. I had to defend it to my parents. They thought I wasn't working a real job. There couldn't be a way I was actually working. It's like, oh, are you just spending all your money? Retirement's going to be hard.
It's true. My mother still calls me asking when I'm buying a house and when I'm buying a car. It's time to settle, Gonçalo. You are not getting younger. And well, I have a base now, which is getting better. I have a Madeira base, but I still travel most of the time. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Do you foresee, have you already had companies contacting you saying, hey, I've got 20 workers. I want to do a remote work project. Can you take on 20 workers and like have all these
A
events for
lot.
them? Okay.
A
I wonder
lot.
if
We
a
have
company
both.
like Apple would ever, or somebody on that level would in the future
Yes,
may
but probably in the
contact you.
US. Yeah, probably in the US. We are contacted by many companies because they see Madeira, they see the Nomad Village. The challenge we have is always accommodation. Madeira is a little bit distributed, so there is not accommodation, at least Airbnbs, for everyone, for a big company at the same time. We have to use hotels, and hotels need to be ready. Most of them in Madeira are already quite ready for that, but it's still quite challenging because Madeira doesn't have a low season anymore. But I used to have a low season. Now there is no low season. Now we take over. So no, everybody makes money the whole year round. So Madeira is being looked. Some people already came here, but it's much easier to do in bigger places or in places with 20 to 40 bedrooms. I am opening a co-living space that will also accommodate companies willing to do retreats until 40 people. But I think that's the new normal. Like we see companies left and right doing retreats in Lisbon, doing retreats in Madeira, in Azores. And I think they just need to be better designed to not be only party. I think we need to think about these gatherings as almost thought to the second on how we can create connection, how we can create these special moments within 5 days, so the social glue stays for the rest of the year. So yes, it's happening, and places like Lisbon, places like Azores and Madeira are being really, really, really researched for this. I receive questions almost every single day, but still a lot of work to do also on the meaning and how we do these retreats. I think it will be fine in the future, but we need also to build a structure. Normal hotels are not good enough. And yeah, we need to think better about the structure used for this kind of retreats and what would be the perfect structure for retreats for all sized companies.
Yeah, also for remote work, like how much the company is going to pay you, what they're going to
Yeah.
pay for, what you're going to be responsible for. It's really interesting to get these like setups in place so that it becomes just like remote, very easy to just get company after company doing these things, and then therefore giving people more freedom as they work remotely.
Yeah, and again, it's focusing on connection. Okay, it's focusing in building the community. Companies are also communities. They are tribes, right? If you work really well your culture, your company will be a tribe. Your people will be defending your company with everything they have, and that's what you want to build. You can build it remotely. You can build it in person. It's definitely not the office that builds the culture. You see, the best cultures are in companies like Buffer, like Doist, like GitLab. People dress the t-shirt and they say, I'm this, I'm from Doist, I'm from Buffer, and they have an incredible culture with 0 offices. So it's definitely not about the space. So we need to learn how to create these gatherings online, how to create these gatherings offline, and use both. I think we'll have a head of community for every single company. Web3 companies already have like community managers. I think, well, lots of companies should really think about having community managers, having tribe managers, like a little bit like happiness managers were doing, but more focused in connecting people instead of individual happiness.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Well, thank you so much for sharing about all of these different remote work elements that you're bringing together, and even on the governmental side. If people want to find all these communities and follow you, where can they go?
Now we have a place, we have a house, it's
Yes,
NomadX.
finally.
So we have NomadX.com, and you can see all our communities there. We have Caparica in Lisbon, we have Cape Verde, we have Madeira, and we will have Brazil very, very soon. And if you want to follow my ideas, I write most often on LinkedIn. So add me on LinkedIn is where I write my ideas, my craziness, and my tips for both remote work and digital nomadism. So you'll see like lists of the cities and countries I think it will pop in the next couple of years. You'll see my opinions about remote work, and you'll see almost weekly news about what's happening in the remote work arena.
Thank you so much. As we know, remote work is always changing. So we look forward to having you back with us again in the future to give us an update.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Becky. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.